less than subtle blend of the Highlands, distilled recently. Not an expensive single malt. The drinker clearly can't afford anything more expensive than a dyed-in-the-wool, common or garden blend of whiskey. What could it be though? What sort of whiskey could it be? My educated, clinical mind can't quite pinpoint the brand, the maturity, the name of this elusive whiskey. It'll come to me. Hey folks, Kilt-Man here, Kilt-Man! At your service. How are you all? Yes, it's grouse. You can't fool me. I know my whiskies, especially the cheap ones. Anyway, how are you all? I hope you're doing very, very well. Right, this little video is about Hans Zimmer's score to Guy Ritchie's Sherlock Holmes. Yes. And, you know, I have sort of swung from side to side on the whole Hans Zimmer thing. In fact, on loads of videos about Hans Zimmer's music, I've started off by going, he's the ruination of modern film scoring. And indeed he is. He is. The way that he dominates, you know, movies, and he's the go-to guy, and he trains an entire army of, you know, minions with his remote control company or media ventures, whatever it's called these days. But remote control is a really good name for it, because the way he trains people into his ways and then sends them forth, and they get projects, but then you bring him in as the consultant and the writer, and pretty much he's done the music for him. And even if they do the music themselves, it's an exact clone of what he would do. And the other thing I don't like about him is the way that he's such a renowned composer. He scours the world trying to find virtuosos, impresarios, absolute geniuses with a violin, with a voice, with a fiddle, with a bass cello, experimental stuff, you know, the drummers, percussion. You know, he will find these absolute, you know, complete one-offs, these avant-garde musicians, and he'll draft them in and record them, and then he'll just sample it when the actual film score is released. Now that's happened numerous times, and I don't understand that. And yet, you see, I'm a Gemini, I see both sides. Yes, I'm a two-faced swine. But when it comes down to it, I adore far more of his soundtracks than I don't like. I just don't like the way that he takes over. And yet when I break down and analyse all the scores that, you know, he's done, I go, you know what? I quite like that. In fact, in many cases, I don't just like them, I love them. And this is a major case in point. Guy Ritchie's Sherlock Holmes, Robert Downey Jr, Jude Law as Dr. Watson. It is absolutely fantastic. Mark Strong as Lord Blackwood, you know, this demonic, satanic character who comes back from the grave and wreaks absolute havoc on old London. But he has this scheme, this almost Blofeld, James Bond, you know, fiendish master plan of destroying, you know, the lords and ladies and all that, you know, the high polloi of London and society and government, and ushering in a whole new world order using what's a brand new thing at the time, chemical warfare, cyanide gas. This is pre the First World War, of course. Guy Ritchie's style, you either like it or you loathe it, and I like it, but I think this is the best he's ever done with Sherlock Holmes. Now, folks, I'm not reviewing the film here. It'll come across like that I am, but I'm really going to focus on the music, because the music is so good. Addictive, funny, bizarre, Eastern European flavoured, exceptionally gypsy infused. And again, for this score, he did seek out people who were just so incredibly versatile and adept and unique with certain instruments. The fiddles, cellos, bass, percussion, tam-tams, tabla, you know, tom-toms, Tom Thumb, fucking everything. He used everything is thrown into here. There's bagpipes, reeling pipes. It's all sorts of stuff. And the cymbalom, the awesome cymbalom. Yes, the third man, anybody? And it's such a quirky, sort of woozy, almost buffoonish sort of sound, but it fits the character that Robert Downey Jr. provides for Sherlock Holmes. And by the way, this characterization of Sherlock Holmes, despite the fact that he uses extensive martial arts and he's very pugilistic, he's very dynamic and action-packed, he quite clearly is taking cocaine because he's such a manic, OTT, ADD sort of guy. He lives inside his brain. I love the fact that he analyses every single situation. No matter, he could just sitting there at dinner, he will ascertain, where that person over there has been because of what's on their heels, what's on their cuffs, the smell on their shoulder, they've been down the dock. He knows everything. He's calculating it all. But the reason why he fights so well is because, again, that's a clinical, deductive process. There's mathematics and physics involved in beating somebody up. So he's had to learn how to fight, the anatomy of someone, the weak spots, how to defeat them in order to gain more information, survive, and solve the case. And I love it. I love it. I didn't so much like the sequel, Game of Shadows, which brought Moriarty to the fore. I just didn't think it worked anywhere near as well. I've since rewatched it after first reviewing it many years ago for AV Forums. I reviewed both movies, and where I gave a massive sprawling 10 out of 10 to the original Sherlock Holmes, I think I gave a paltry 6, maybe less, to the sequel. But I had my reasons for it. I've since gone back and watched it again, not recently, and I thought, okay, visually it's great, action-wise, yeah, it's got it, but again, not to the same degree as the first movie. And I just didn't think it panned out anywhere near as well. But, hey. And we have got another Sherlock Holmes coming. But Guy Ritchie is not doing it. But at least Robert Downey Jr. is. And everyone goes, oh, Downey Jr., Tony Stark. Sherlock Holmes, mate. I think that's his defining moment. And I could watch that first film endlessly. And it is just a great work of visual aplomb, cinematic dexterity, innate characterization, a fantastically ebullient and enthusiastic, ensemble piece. It's demonic, and yet Scooby-Doo wise, all these, kind of satanic elements are unraveled, and there's no black magic. You're just a conjurer, it's just make-believe. It's a con job. Well, yeah, but it still works. Music-wise, as I say, this whole gypsy thing. Let's get on to the title theme called Discompobulate. Discombobulate. This morning for breakfast, before I began to work from home on a laptop, I had one of these, and Mrs. Kilt-Man said to me, she went, "It's a bit early for that, don't you think?" And in pure Sherlockian mode, I retorted fastidiously. I said, "Nonsense, woman! It focuses my concentration." Cymbalom, tam-tams, fiddles. There's energy to it. I'm going to turn up again. Woodblock percussion as well, and rattles and shakers which are in there, adding flavour and colour to it, giving a sense of industry. This is turn of the century, the Industrial Revolution. The whole film has chains and gears and cogs and wheels and machinery, dockside, scientific, pathology, there's machinery, there's bell jars and electricity. All sorts of things are going on, and the music reflects that. And also the whole thing about such a diverse multicultural society, all these different races and creeds coming into the melting pot metropolis of London. And you're getting that. But the Eastern European gypsy thing is hugely prevalent. There's a jaunt to it. The film is violent, but it's got this enthusiastic sort of energy, this buoyancy, which you just can't help but be carried along with it, swept along with its vigour, and the music really helps with that. Beautiful. Now, another element, I'll come on to this, another element, but let's have a bit more of the gypsy stuff, which I think might be here. Violins are on just absolute steroids. Cat strings. And them things. Concertinas. There is an Xpera bass in here as well. What's that, Kilt-Man? It was built for it. An Xpera bass. I love this sort of stuff. Not a fan of gypsies, by the way, but I do love this sort of deepest rural Europe sort of flavour and vigour. It's a touch of the exotic, and you fall for it. You can imagine a few tipples down your neck and some seedy bar and a bit of belly dancing, and a Romany comes up to you. Bangles and bracelets, lots of dark eyeshadow. And in the sequel you had New Meter Pace playing a gypsy European. You know, a sultry agent provocateur. And all this, you've got, in this film you have Dredger, about 8 feet tall, of muscle-bound fucking brick shithouse stuntman with a face like a brick wall, you know, and they have to go up against him. Not once but twice. The first time actually leads to a ship being sunk in the Thames. Brilliant stuff, brilliant stuff. But what I'm going to come on to is Hans Zimmer has this thing about time. I mean, he's done an entire piece called Time, but if you look and listen to many of his soundtracks, many of his scores, there is an element of tick-tock, tick-tock, which echoes through them, adding this sense of suspense and build-up in some cases, and also the elegiac passage of time and the tragedy of time passing by in many other examples. I'm thinking The Thin Red Line, I'm thinking Interstellar, I'm thinking Dunkirk, Inception. It's been in a lot of these movies, a lot of these scores, and it's in many more besides those, but they're the most prevalent ones. It's in the, you know, the scores for the Dark Knight trilogy as well. But what he does in the big balls out, brawlathon, exciting stampede finale, actually it's the finale, and then you've got quite a bit after it as well, but where he will finally thwart the Houses of Parliament, or rather the sewers beneath the Houses of Parliament, which are about to be engulfed in cyanide gas. He and Watson and Adler, you know, who were Rachel McAdams, Sherlock Holmes' Achilles heel, the love of his life, the only woman who ever outsmarted him, and they will all outwit and take care of all these goons and buffoons who are down there, and, you know, dismantle this bomb that's going to be there, which is going to completely consume all those who don't side with Lord Blackwood, Mark Strong. And but you've got Big Ben there as well, so the whole thing becomes a race against time. And Hans Zimmer, you know, said that, you know, I'm using the Big Ben theme. You know, I'm playing with that. I'm going to add this and incorporate this. What Big Ben theme? Well, you'll hear it. And by the way, it's not the Big Ben theme. It's called the Westminster Chimes, actually. but the way that he brings it in, and it's you know, this whole thing about the time concept, the tick-tock thing, which he does so movingly and hauntingly in Interstellar, a film I don't actually like very much, but I do like what Hans Zimmer did with the score, and I like the way it fits with it, and I find it very emotional, you know, for just a very simple motif, but it works so well. But in this, it's not a simple motif, and in the film itself, it's actually hidden away. You don't really hear it when you're watching the film, but when you hear it on the score itself, on the soundtrack, it's there, and it's brilliantly brought in. The track is called Psychological Recovery, 6 months. And we're going to get into this right now. Because he has this thing of working out, you know, when you first meet him. Incidentally, a lot of the filming locations were not far from where I'm sitting right now, in Stanley Dock, Liverpool. I work just down the road from there. And watching the film, it's great. People in Hollywood and New York are dead blasé about like film locations in movies. You see it all the time. Roads are always cordoned off. But in Liverpool, which is becoming a bit of a mecca, a UK Hollywood of its own, you know, we're getting a lot of movies and TV shows done there all the time, or at least we were just, you know, pre-lockdown. But Sherlock Holmes come out, and that was big, and they used Stanley Dock Market and these old Victorian, earlier in fact, you know, warehouses. I think there's fireworks going off out there. Yeah, because Liverpool got the cup last night. Yeah, Liverpool FC. So people are still celebrating. So you might hear some firecrackers and bangers and whooping whoops. I always bring you a bit more in, you know, a bit more ambience. But when you first meet Sherlock Holmes, and to thwart one of Lord Blackwood's earlier, you know, rituals, a ritual sacrifice, it's all part of the plan. And he takes out a goon on the stairs, a sentry, and he works out, head's leaning that side, partially deaf in that ear, discombobulate, then I'll break the jaw here, fracture it there, then he's a drinker, so I'll take out his floating rib, then I'll really do him a bit more damage, then I'll take out that bad kneecap, you know. Physical recovery, 6 weeks. Psychological recovery, 6 months, you know what. So this track is called that, and this is the big, huge, epic build-up to that big, action-packed, you know, crescendo. But it will bring in the main theme in a more heroic, guys, you're hearing it now. Fiddles, percussion, all coming in. Everything will be here. Tabla, tam-tam, cymbalom, expera bass, whatever it is. But it will build up to this great moment when the Westminster Chimes comes in, and the way that he incorporates that, it's almost like the Pogues meets Steptoe Son, you know. It's quaint, it's unorthodox, it's unusual, it's gonna build. I may have to like actually judge this on a bit because it's a fucking long track. 18 minutes worth. The game's afoot. I used to work with a guy who'd say that all the time. He'd go, the game's afoot, like that. And like, I'm well versed in Sherlock Holmes. I've read pretty much all the stories and seen all the movies, and I thought, I know what you're talking about, but he'd say it the most inopportune moments, the most inappropriate. You know, someone would just say like, oh, posts arrive, and he'd go like, the game's afoot. And but he'd do that. What the fuck's that about? You know, Sherlock Holmes didn't have a squint, unless he's doing like a magnifying glass. The game's afoot. It's say one about Hans Zimmer, but his motifs, his themes are strong, and they can be brought in to various other pieces of suites and symphonic cues. You can blend them in and manipulate them and change them, but still keep that main thrust and momentum going. He takes his time with a lot of stuff, and he likes long, as I say, suites of music, a bit like James Horner did as well. So you're at each another plateau, but it will begin to build again. There's a nice echo on that. I mean, that's piano. You've got accordions in there. These agitated strings. Cello, double bass. You can hear there wasn't a tick-tock in there. It's subtle, it's hidden inside all of this wall of sound, but it's there. Like clockwork. You get wheels and cogs turning. You're getting that effect. That's clever, that. It conveys so much of this period and this, this setting. Another plateau. People are realizing things. Oh shit, this is going to go off big time, but we can't diffuse it. We can't take the poison out because it's welded there. Shit, how are we going to do this? Have you got your clay pipe? Yes, I have. But then goons will come out of nowhere. There's a slight, sense of weight and gravity and tragedy, because above all this, you've got all these lords, these stately guys, these politicians who are being held to ransom. Fucking hundreds of them. Some would say, Lord Blackwood might have had quite a good idea. We could do with it now. Houses of Parliament. Kilt-Man! Don't you dare get political! I'm not sure how much of this he actually sampled, or whether this score actually does use the original instrumentation. I think he does use a lot of that. I think he does in this. Right, folks. Get ready for this Westminster chimes. I think it's adorable the way he brings it in. Genuinely. It's like that. It's a wink to everybody. Big Ben's just there. You hear this motif all the time. Gypsy elements creeping in. Okay, folks, it's pretty soon. Spirited, isn't it? The way it builds, it's coming. The Westminster chimes brought into a big brawling action track. And yet that's subdued in the movie itself, because there's fighting and shooting and impacts. but it's diluted. I always say it must be, if you can play an instrument, and like, you know, God, I admire anyone that can. All I can play is the blue veiny flute. But if you can play an instrument, you know, a musical instrument, I am mightily impressed. And to be in an orchestra playing alongside this sort of thing, a movie soundtrack where you, in a lot of cases the movie's playing out in front of you and you're performing. Oh, it must be so exhilarating. It must be such incredible fun. It's just genius. This is the guy that I was saying has ruined film scoring in the modern age. You've got guitars in it as well, but they're gypsy guitars. You know, they're not like, you know, Fender Stratocasters. You know, it's exotic instruments again. Let's just get back on. Just to finish off, we'll go on to a Big Gypsy, the main theme, which is beautiful. When this film first came out, my daughter was just about 3 years old, if that, maybe not even that, and she loved this. Her little suit, her little pants, she'd pull them down and she'd put her bum out and she'd walk around like that, like Mick Jagger. She'd do a strut like that and do this incredible little strut, because this became the soundtrack of our house, Kilt-Mansion, for a long time. But it does have that fun, that gets inside you, it's infectious, it puts a grin on your face. There's a jaunt to it. You can't take anything seriously with this. And whatever life throws at you, play this, and you're like, give it your best shot. The game's afoot! Kilt-Man, you play this music all the time and we love it, but for God's sake, shut up so we can hear the music for once, will you? So walk into a pub and you've got like a jamming session of all these Romanies there, these Romany musicians. It'd be awesome. Pub down the road from me, the Cask, before lockdown, had bands all the time. On a Sunday afternoon, there'd be fiddlers in there, there'd be, you know, crooners, there'd be all sorts in the afternoon. You just walk in and they'd all be there, they'd all gang up together and just appear and just jam together. Awesome stuff. Folks, that was a musical trip down turn of the century old London in the company of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. So please, guys and gals, in the meantime, and that hinterland we call the in-between time, where most of the fun really happens, take it easy, be happy, be healthy, keep it kilted, keep it Celtic, try and be gothic, and I'm going to see you all watch out for that ginger dwarf. Midget Watson.